Real Talk is proudly sponsored by Y-Wave P20 Pro and MTN.
Each week for 10 weeks, we're giving away the latest Y-Wave.
Drifting is fun. It's a hooligan sport. You go sideways and burn tires and make smoke. We just couldn't resist it. We decided to build ourselves a drift Mustang. I think most men are quite surprised when they see who's driving the car, especially a car like this, which is such a muscle car and so macho. Gradually, people's perceptions are changing and they're beginning to understand that a woman can actually drive as well or better than a man. It's really very cool for me at the track when youngsters and young girls come to me and they talk to me, and you can just see that suddenly now the possibilities are coming through, that maybe this is something that they could be doing as well.
Can you feel that adrenaline rush? Good evening to you at home and a warm welcome. It's Real Talk right here on SABC 3. She's dubbed as Mrs. Fast or the Speed Sister. Clare Vale is a lady of many firsts, from becoming the first lady racer to race in the premier V8 Supercar series, the first female driver to have a podium finish in the V8 Supercar history, to becoming the first lady of drifting. Now that is power. Well, she's right here on the Real Talk couch. Good evening, Clare.
Hi, Azania. Thank you for having me here.
That was so thrilling. That was just so thrilling, like looking at you taking those curves, staying within the road, the lanes and so on, and drifting right through. What was that about? What was happening in that race?
That really is not actually a competition, but that is what we do in drifting. We get the car sideways, and normally in a competition, in fact, there are two cars and you have to follow each other really closely. It's very exciting and very technical.
Yeah. So what are you actually doing in order to make sure that your rear wheels are steering you?
I guess it's really important. You need a lot of commitment in drifting, because you use your throttle. You have to keep the power on. If you're hesitating back out, then you're much more likely to spin out or end up in the wall, because a lot of the events are held on arenas with proper concrete walls. So yeah, it's very important. Your car has to have enough steering angle, and the more power you have, actually, the better and easier it is to keep drifting.
Yes. So you are here in your gear. It's just so impressive to see you right now. You just short, I guess, the gloves and the helmet. Tell me about the suit.
These suits are, they're really important for racing because they're fireproof and they'll keep you safe. That's one of the scariest things about motorsport, I think, is if you have a fire.
Yeah.
But of course, the drawback is they're really hot, and in summer you can really sit and cook in your car. But you've got to have it. Safety is critical.
Yeah. So what's the highest speed you've ever done?
I guess in the V8s in East London, which is the fastest racetrack in the country, we used to get just on 300 k's an hour at the bottom of the main straight there, at the bottom of the hill.
300 k's?
Yeah.
That is impressive. What kind of car were you driving for that?
That's the Mustang, the V8 supercars. Yeah.
Why a special love for V8s particularly?
I think the V8s are, they're not very civilized in a way, should I say. They're a little bit rough, a little bit tough, hairy-chested, very macho sort of cars.
A muscle car earlier on?
Yeah, they really are muscle cars. They've got lots of horsepower. They usually make lots of noise, and people love them. There's a thing about something about V8s that they're iconic, especially a Mustang. Everybody loves a Mustang.
Yeah, yeah. But that sound of that engine can be annoying on a regular day. You're sitting at a coffee shop and then there goes someone doing their thing down the road. But of course it belongs on the racetrack. Do you love that sound? Are you able to distinguish that's a V8 engine?
Oh yes,
that's a
yes.
V6 engine?
Most definitely.
You can tell?
Oh yes.
So that training must take a while.
No, I don't think, I think it's kind of automatic. As you drive the cars, you certainly get to know the sound, and yeah, no, it's just, I think it's in here.
Oh, wow. And that's where you feel it too. That's where
Yeah,
you feel it, in
and
your gut,
here.
in your chest. Where? Where do you feel it?
A lot of driving is really about feel, you know, especially on the racetrack, because you feel everything, you feel, you know, you're part of your car, and that's where you feel exactly what your car is doing, if it's starting to slide, or, you know, maybe you need to make your springs a bit softer. A lot of setup actually comes from what you feel.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's instinct. I know it's technical, as you said at the beginning. How much of this is instinct? Because, of course, it's science, but with many of these things, there's also an element of art, which is often driven by instinct.
Yeah, certainly. It's pretty technical in many ways, especially when it comes to things like setup and so on. I think the more technical knowledge you have, the better you are at setting up your car or asking your team to help you set it up, because you understand spring rates and if the car needs to be softer at the back or harder at the back, if you're getting understeer or oversteer. So it's pretty technical. I think instinct, yeah, of course, you know, if you're a natural driver and so on, there's a certain amount of instinct. But as you sort of move into the more competitive formulas, perhaps, then it becomes quite technical too.
Yeah. So let's look at how you got into this. It was, what, a trip to Kyalami that grabbed you.
Yes.
What was going on, and what was it about the occasion, the event, the smell, the atmosphere, what you heard? Just take me there.
Azania, I've always wanted to race, but I never really had the chance. You know, my family wasn't a racing family and so on. And then I was 44 and I went to Kyalami to do a BMW advanced driving course, the high power one. And I was totally hooked, and I had a wonderful instructor. We were faster than anybody. We took all the fast lines and we had a fantastic day. And at the end of the day, I said to him, well, do you think I could become a racing driver? And it would have been so easy for him to say, no, you're too old, or, you know, it's too late, or, you know, you're a woman, don't bother. And he thought about it for a bit, and he said to me, it would take a lot of practice. And that was enough, you know, that was enough. It really encouraged me. I might have ended up racing anyway, but by saying to me, well, it was possible, that was it. Then I went home and I said, that's it, I want to race, and I really just kept pushing from there.
So how much time have you committed? How much time, if you are going to practice, as he said, did it require out of your day, out of your weekends? How much time did you commit to it?
Racing is difficult because it's not like golf or tennis where you can, you know, just go and practice after work or something. You know, you actually have to have a racetrack and a car and, you know, usually people to help you run the car and so on. So actually, I did most of my learning on the track in competitions. And unfortunately, I think most of us kind of learn that way because it's just too expensive and complicated. As I say, you can't just take your golf clubs and go and hit a few balls. It's a lot more complicated than that. So certainly that's how I learned, really.
Do you
a lot
remember
of
your
trial
first
and
race?
error. I do.
How did it go? Where did you finish?
It was okay. I said all along I just wanted to finish the race, and I didn't want to finish last, and I didn't want to have any crashes or anything. And yeah, I got all of that right, and it was awesome. Afterwards, I felt like I'd won a Grand Prix.
And Lord knows you've been on those podiums. You've been. How many times have you come first?
Quite a few times. I've never won a championship actually,
Wow.
but you know, I think. Really, it's quite difficult to win a championship in many ways because you've got to be really consistent. You know, you've got to finish every race and, you know, be right at the top.
So do you only race with other women, or
No.
do you also race with men? It's
Always men, really.
It's
you know,
mixed.
occasionally there are a few women. Unfortunately, not many. I'd like to see a lot more, but 99% of the time I race against the guys. Yes.
yeah. So do you keep a tally of the number of crashes you've had?
Not that many.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
But I think it goes with the territory, you know, especially on the racetrack. If you're going into the first corner, there are a lot of people. I mean, everybody's trying to be the first one through the corner, and you know, crashes happen all the time.
Yeah.
As I say, it's part of racing.
All right. Well, Claire, you're still with us. We're going to have you back on the couch so we can unpack what it's like for women in this particular racing space. So after the break, I'm joined by a self-confessed motoring enthusiast and a petrol head, Vuyi Mpofu. She'll be joining me on the couch. Stay tuned.
This week we tackled the rather serious topic of car hijacking. I can't remember when this whole business of car hijacking began. I mean, believe it or not, there was a time when people stole things from cars and not the actual car itself. But it's gotten so out of hand that we actually have signs that say, beware of car hijacking. It baffles the mind. But the question is, where and when are you most likely to become a victim of car hijacking, and how can you prevent it from happening to you?
That was Vuyi Mpofu, and she is unapologetic about her views on motoring. She's a regular girl next door who just so happens to bring a sparkle, as you saw with all those heels, and she adds a refreshing touch with her in-depth knowledge in the motoring industry. Vuyi, welcome to Real Talk. You know, I've watched your journey unfold. From the time when you had this concept, I remember getting the PowerPoint presentation. I was at Metro at the time. Here's this woman saying, I want to talk cars, please give me this opportunity. And we did.
Yeah.
It was such a fantastic time.
That was so many years ago.
Yes.
And I remember I had all these grand ideas, including the TV show. And to be honest, you did look at me like...
I did what, a motor show?
Motor show by a woman.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, I think thankfully it's come to fruition.
Yes. So how's the road been, this journey? Because you were in PR and marketing for 15 years and then decided to take this leap.
Well, you know what? I'm sure similar with yourself. You want to basically follow your passion.
Yeah.
You can only do something for so long that you're not really married to. And after such a long time, I really just wanted to get back into that whole, you know, smell of fuel, the V8 engine. I love that. I'm like one of those, if I was a guy, I'd be one of those guys who just stops talking when a beautiful woman walks into the room. For me, if I hear an engine, a motorbike, I'll forget what I'm saying until the sound is gone, and then I'll come back to you. You're going to have to remind me what it is.
Your mind, you're hearing the sound, the bike is coming down the road, or the car's coming down the road. What are you thinking?
What is it? What engine is that? What car is that? Oh my gosh, is it supercharged? Did they do something to it? And I'm listening to all of these tones within the engine, within the exhaust. I'm like, oh, tell me what it is, tell me what it is. And now you get it to the point of knowing exactly what type of a superbike that is. As it's going past, and you're like, yes, I got it.
No, your passion is palpable. And we saw it as well through your TV show. How did that go?
That was actually quite an interesting journey. It was really great to see the whole idea come to life. I mean, remember, we met in what, 2010, 2009? And I was telling you about this TV idea. And then to actually see it come to life was like, ah. But what I wasn't prepared for was how much work was involved. You know, it looks great when you see the end product, but you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background, you know, from the scripting, from, you know, location. It's different when you are talking about cars on radio or writing about them, as opposed to actually, you know, showing it on television. And you still need to, because you're a female, you can't just rock up in your jeans and your t-shirt and your flops like the guys do. You know, there are different rules for us, you know?
So how did you have to rock up? Was there ever a time when people undermined your authority and credibility when it comes to this topic?
Of course.
What would they do?
From that aspect, what you would have is a lot of guys trying to show you up, trying to figure out if you actually do know, you know, and that's just the average guy on the street. And they'll come to you and say, oh, so, yeah, how does it, and you know, like, carry on. You have a question to ask, you know, and then they actually get surprised, if not embarrassed, when you are actually able to answer them or actually correct them. Because guys don't even know as much as they think they do. Guys don't know as much as we give them credit to. So one thing, if I may say, ladies, please stop dragging your poor husband, brother, father to the dealership and asking him to help you buy your car. When he gets there, the salesperson is going to talk to him.
Oh yes, no, you ignored. You ignored.
Your money, it's your car, it's your experience. You're the one who's going to be driving it at the end of the day, you know. And all the salesman can say to you is, oh, that color looks nice on you. Like, what? You know me?
All the soft, pretty stuff.
No, man.
Yeah, that's what they're selling you, not the specs, not the performance.
So it does come to that, you know. But over the years, you know, I think I've basically earned my place and the right to be able to talk about the topic. And guys will actually ask, so what do you think of this? And this time it's a genuine question. It's not, you know, trying to catch you out or something.
That's fantastic, because now that you've broken that ice, you're part of a group of women who have demonstrated that it's possible. Other people can also feel comfortable to enter the space. We've seen you writing, you've done the TV show, you're always present to represent this particular demography. But we also get taken for a ride. Just because we don't know, we can't tell that our brake pads are finished, or they're not finished. You go to,
Yeah.
you go to the dealership, the mechanic, whatever, and we take their story for it. Meanwhile, maybe he's barely done anything to your car.
Well,
So the problems are not severe and you're paying.
sadly, that's, the reality of it, which is why I started something called Girls Garage, where we basically take women into the dealership, into the service section of the dealership, pop open the bonnet. Lots of women don't even know where to open the bonnet. You look guilty.
I'm not guilty. If my car battery has gone off, I know how to charge that battery.
Okay.
I know how to do things like that. I know how to change a tire.
The way I don't believe you right now, the way I don't believe you, but I'll take your word for it. Okay, that's great. So we take women into the dealership, into the service section, and you teach them, this is what a spark plug looks like. This is where it goes, this is what it does.
This is what it looks like when it's finished.
This is what it looks like when your brake pads are worn, because exactly that happens. You go into, you take a drive from Joburg to Durban, for instance, you get there and, you hear a little squeak, you go into the nearest, dealership, and they say, oh my gosh, if you had driven another 2 Ks, you'd have died, you'd have crashed. Yeah, meanwhile, it's just a speck of dust or some water that just, got into it, and then you're actually going to pay. So it's unfortunate that women are starting, or rather it's fortunate that women are starting to want to know more about their cars. Would you believe one of my biggest challenges came from women?
Not trusting and believing in you.
Yeah.
So also skeptical.
Skeptical, because obviously people will judge you from their own point of view, knowledge, levels, or whatever the case may be. So you'll see a woman stuck on the side of the road with a flat tire.
Yeah.
And you're like, Sissy, she'll be like, I'm like, no, this is who I am, this is what I do. Oh, okay. Look, the point is, would you rather stand on the side of the road getting, melted by the sun, or will you just, trust somebody to assist you? But I found that a lot of women were more willing to be assisted by total strangers, guys that they'd never met before. And I'm like, okay, look, do you want this guy standing there, slowly jacking up your car? So sister, whilst he's doing this, and something that could take 20 minutes is actually going to take an hour, who's got that kind of time? So that's basically the evolution of imparting the mechanical, technical knowledge that I have.
No, and I know you're passionate about the education side of it, creating awareness and literally just changing the dynamics when we talk about cars. But for you, your dad was a mechanic. There was grease, petrol, engine parts all over the place.
Yeah.
So you grew up watching cars and what goes into cars as a child.
That was the only way that I could actually spend time with my dad.
Really?
I was his little spanner boy, and he didn't know I was, no,
Spanner
seriously.
girl.
No, spanner boy. My dad didn't know I was a girl until I was about 13. He really thought I was
Looking at you now, that's hard to believe. Maybe we need your childhood pictures.
I will send them to you. But I was a bit of a tomboy, quite a bit, and that's basically how I started to get, interested in cars and that kind of stuff. So I knew which, spanner to hand him, what the problem was, and then we'd be talking about other stuff, schoolwork and, all that kind of stuff whilst we were doing that. And that's basically how it started.
So how does the family feel that this is what you do for a living now?
Ooh, they're watching, ne? Well, my mom has finally come round, but it took her a minute because, who's going to marry a woman with grease under her fingernails? No, girls need to be in the kitchen kind of thing.
Wow.
My brother is a mechanic as well. So now she's basically resigned herself to the fact that when the two of us are in the house, it's going to be a motoring, channel.
Conversation.
So she's fine with it. And now that she can see, the development, the evolution of it. And I think it only really hit her probably when the TV show was on. Because when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, when you're talking about your vision, it's your vision. Nobody else can actually see it until you actually start living it.
Yes.
Then, when it starts to bear fruit, then somebody's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yes. We've got a caller for you. Lanz, good afternoon. Welcome to Real Talk. Hello, Lanz.
Lanz, you can speak?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Welcome.
Hi, Lanz.
Is Lanz there? All right, maybe we don't have Lanz. We'll try and get him back on the line a little bit later. But Vuyi, thank you so much. We'll discuss some of the other dynamics, some of the politics involved in the industry a little bit later.
Great stuff.
Thank you. That was Vuyi Mpofu. Next up, you'll get to meet a woman who's known as the Iron Lady on the international karting circuit, or the fast girl from the South. When we return, I'll have a chat with Fabienne Lanz. Well, that's my guest in action. It's time for us to get acquainted with her. Thank you for staying with us here on Real Talk on SABC3, where the stage is yours. Well, this evening I'm having a sit-down chat with some of South Africa's finest forces in the car and motoring industry. And this time around, we're chatting to veteran karter Fabienne Lanz, and she's one of South Africa's leading racers, having a regular race-winning pedigree. It comes with no surprise that she was the first female on the podium of a World Super Rock. And she'll tell us more about what she does, because she often says, oh, I'm nothing special, just one of the boys. Welcome, Fabienne.
Thank you.
Well, with the name like that, I know it's the female version, but I'm sure people always expect a man when they see your name, for instance, on the list of races, for instance, or they see Fabienne Lanz. They think, oh, no, racing against a guy.
It's highly possible, especially when you race overseas, because there's a lot of different names and a lot of different cultures mixing.
Yes.
I like to surprise them sometimes when the helmet comes off and they're like, oh, that's not a dude.
It's not a dude. So for you, it all started at Swartkorp's racing track, right?
Yeah, so my dad used to race cars.
Yes,
and he
the
had
famous Peter Lanz.
Yes, and he had a workshop, so that was my playground when I was small. And I love telling everybody the story that I was actually a ballerina before I started racing.
So you gave up your ballet booties for racing?
For racing shoes. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. So my dad did try with my sister and my brother, but they weren't too keen. And then, yes, because one day at a birthday party, indoor karting, they let all the kids drive, and then I kept nagging him from there that I actually really like this. And I don't think he cared too much at the time, because I was the Barbie girl. And then I kept going, you know, there were rules in place before I could go. I had to do homework first. And then once all of that's done, I could go run there and go and drive. And at the age of 9, he bought me my first kart. And 21 years or so later, I'm still doing it.
21 years. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And this is a great training ground for people who have ambitions of doing Formula One, isn't it? Because I've heard that for parents who want to turn their children, you look at someone like Lewis Hamilton, for instance, that this is part of grooming for the big leagues.
Yeah, the top of the range kart, if you want to call it that, is a 125 6-speed shifter kart. So that's the closest thing that you get to a Formula One car, because the track is very tight. It's only about 1.4 kilometers, so the reaction time is really fast, and they say that's actually the closest to a Formula One car.
Yeah, so which one do you race in?
So currently it is the 6-speed shifter kart, so I'm racing in the cherry on the cake category, and we're going to actually race overseas next month in the Rock World Final that I did that time when I finished 5th, just now in a shifter class.
So what do you prefer, the one with the gears or not, or the one without?
They all have their little specialities. I've driven a whole lot of different ones, but apparently the shifter one I look the most comfortable. Yeah.
So why particularly karting and not racing in cars?
That's a tricky question. I think I've never really actually gotten the bridge into car racing. I've raced cars here and there, but somehow it's always drawn me back into the karting and that, and I race a lot overseas. And I've just been in that scene, and then every time we go somewhere else or somewhere new, and then it's something different, and then we're so busy with that. And then at the same time, I've made my own karting team as well. So I teach kids how to race. So it's that bond that I have with them, and I'm enjoying it so much at the moment, and it keeps me so busy. So that's what we're doing.
So what is your plan then for your career? Where does a woman in professional karting, where are the heights?
So for me personally, the biggest goal or achievement would be to have a factory drive at one of the international brands. Most of them are based in Italy, so it is to have that drive there. But it's been really difficult to get in. I don't know if it's because I am a woman and they tend to choose the guys. I'm not too sure. I do get that feeling sometimes. But I think the passion and the commitment that I show is proving itself, because I did get a part factory drive for this year. So it's one foot in the door. So now I just actually need to get the other one in with a successful event or something like that.
So out of the kids that you teach, what's the split between boys and girls?
Majority are boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you said, you were a little Barbie kind of girl, not seeing enough interested in, even in this era, this generation where parents aren't forcing their kids to play with dolls or play with cars, still not enough girls karting.
Yeah, it's. I often tell people it's not a male-only sport. It's just a
Yes.
male-dominated one. And once you sort of have that perception that it's not just for guys, girls can do it too, it sort of opens up their mind a bit to that. But I'm not too sure as to why the girls don't really want to get into it so much. I don't know if it's too much dirt or grease or hard work or sweat and tears, because it's most of the times you're grumpy and it's not working and the engine seizes or it doesn't go or somebody crashes into you and it's really hard. It's not an easy sport at all, but it really builds strong characters.
So who are your mentors? Who do you look at in the industry that has inspired you?
So it's more like the qualities in different people that I like to see in that. I always say, you know, if you take Formula One drivers, like if you had to combine a Vettel, a Hamilton, and maybe a bit of a Raikkonen with his funny attitude sometimes, and if you had to, and then a bit of a Max Verstappen, that is like this. He suits that team because it's like, you know, Red Bull. It's like this raging bull. And if you had to put them all together, you would make the ultimate driver.
Wow.
Because like each of them have like a really good quality. But as we're all human, all of us have a little bit of a flaw that go with us. So that's where you sort of got to work around that.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Gugu, the late Gugu Zulu also has a very precious space in your heart.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, we've done some races together, like the hill climb and so on. And I think when he started racing, he started in my dad's team, the Sports 2000 team, and that's actually where I know him from. So we've come like a really long way. Yeah, he's a special soul.
Was it also just because of the attitude? Because lots of people
Yes.
talked about
Yeah,
the
he was-
generosity, the kind person that he was.
He was fantastic, or he is fantastic.
Yes.
And always when he says you look a bit down, and then it's like, yeah, because it's a little bit difficult. He's like, but you're still supposed to smile and walk ahead. 'Cause that's him. He always smiled.
What's the hardest thing? Because with karting, you're so exposed. You know, even with bikes, you're just so exposed. And with cars, they reinforced. I think you feel somewhat a little bit more protected. But don't you feel exposed with karting?
I think because of growing up in it, I don't feel like that. But I can tell you one thing: if it's raining, I prefer to sit in the car. Because it's so cold when it's raining and you're getting wet and everything like that. So kart is
slippery roads. You're telling me about the wetness of it. How cold
that's
you feel.
terrible. But yes, I know what you mean. In a car, it's definitely, I think anyone would feel safer with a roll cage. And then you got the whole harness and everything. like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you're going to be back on that couch later as well. That was Fabienne Lanz, everybody. And up next, we'll be meeting a lady taking a road less travel. She's only 22 years of age, and already she's hailed as the princess of spinning. So I want you to buckle up as you'll be meeting Stacey-Lee May after the break, and she'll share more about her journey. All I have to say is Jovicho to that. She does daring stunts which will leave you on the edge of your seat with her unmissable pink 325 IS, so commonly referred to on the streets, of course, in South Africa as Ikusheshe. So with that, it's a pleasure to welcome Stacey to the show. That is crazy.
Thank you.
So this is just shocking, Stacey. that was the suicide slide and some of your stunts,
Yeah, that
right?
was some spinning and some stunts, and mainly my favorite, the suicide slide.
So which one is that? The one where you're hanging out of the car?
Yeah, the suicide slide is when I lock the steering, there's no one in the driver's seat, I sit on the door and I just hang upside down and my head touches the ground while the car is moving.
Your head touches the ground.
Yeah.
Did I just hear you say that? Huh? You must have a death wish.
No, it's actually fun. It's a stress reliever for me. So like when I have stress from varsity, I can just go spinning and like do the suicide sliding. It just feels like all the stress is falling away.
How's the adrenaline rush?
When I first started, it was like I had so much adrenaline. I just wanted to like go for it, and I got scared. But after a while, it just became like normal driving for me. So like when they say we're going spinning, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, let's go.
When people just ask you, take me spinning. Not even take me for a ride around the block. Take me spinning.
They come to my house and they'll be like, oh, we love you. Can you please take us spinning? And then I have to invite them to a show because it's illegal to spin on the streets.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But I think that's part of the reason why there have been times over the years where it would get a bad name. You know, if people do it illegally, crowds would gather at an intersection and then people would spin, and sometimes things can go wrong.
Yeah, like many years ago, like even before I was born, spinning was known for gangsterism. And up to this day, some people don't understand spinning properly. They think it's still gangsterism, but I mean, look at me. I'm not a gangster. I don't own a gun, and I'm not going to kill somebody. So if you look at me, I'm the perfect example of what spinning is and what spinning is supposed to be. Spinning is now a family sport, and it's no longer associated with gangsterism.
So what is that history? You do concede that there was a time when it was, the perception isn't incorrect. There was a connection.
Yeah, spinning way before people would like be in a gang, and if one of your gang members died, you would steal somebody's car.
Yeah.
Like the kusheship, those years were very expensive, so you'd steal that car and then go spin it and then burn it out. So that was those years, like 20, 30 years ago. And now this is the new world, this is the new definition of spinning, and I'm here to show everybody that spinning is something new, spinning is something awesome, and it's a sport that's growing, and if you don't like it, it's just too bad.
Go back to soccer or cricket or rugby or something.
Yeah.
So what's the difference then between spinning and drifting?
Well, spinning is more of a freestyle sport, and you can you get stunts in spinning, and it's just freestyle, you being yourself. And then in drifting, it's more of a sequence where like you get competition and you get Jamkana. That's like the main difference between spinning and drifting.
I see. And of course, there's always burning rubber, so that they have in common, and similar techniques, right? Technically.
Yeah, technically it's the same thing, but like in drifting, you would use like faster cars, like bigger cars, and in spinning we just use the kusheshe, or if you like, you can use any older model rear-wheel drive car.
A rear wheel, that's the key. A rear wheel drive.
A lock diff is the key.
But one would think that because your family is into motoring.
Some
your
of
dad.
us.
Yeah, not all of you.
My mom basically is my manager, so she like just books my gigs, and she always supports me and shouts me a bit sometimes. And then my dad, he like makes sure that we get to our events safely.
Okay.
And then my sister, she's more of like my co-driver. And then
we saw she was in the car with you.
yeah, she was in the car with me. And then my baby brother, he's 14 years old. He's also one of the spinners. He's part of my team.
So what's the role of the co-driver?
Just to sit there and make sure that when I'm doing my suicide slide, I don't fall on my head.
Okay, at least there's somebody there, because I was so worried for you. So with you, it's not as if you started this very young. You are young, but it's like what, 5 years ago?
It's 4 years.
It's pretty recent, and look
Yeah.
at the successes you've had.
Yeah, it's amazing because it's all of the grace of God that I am where I am today.
Yeah.
And I just like want to say thank you, because before I get into into spinning and before I start my car, I just say a little prayer. Even if there's a crowd around me waiting for me to go in and spin, they're going to have to wait, because I'm going to pray and ask God to keep me safe.
So you
Because
feel centered.
yeah, because
and ready
it's
to
all
do this.
because of God that I am. Like
Yeah.
I have everything that I have today.
But it's all thanks to your dad too, because he took you out.
Yeah,
Tell
he
me about
made
that
me
day.
do it.
Made you?
He made me do it. Yeah.
What was going on that day?
Well, I was bullied a lot in school because I was quite young. I matriculated at 16. So I was bullied a lot, and then I had no self-confidence. So the one day, his friend came to visit. His friend's name was Fani. So he came to visit. He was into the spinning, and then he asked my dad, why am I so depressed? And my dad explained to him. So the two of them decided that they're going to put me into a spin car. And then they took me up to an empty parking lot. They told me, okay, if you do this and that, you're going to spin the car. So we did it. It took me about 15 minutes to learn how to spin, and then we've just been spinning since
And I
then.
figured you're a natural at this.
Yeah,
That's
it was my thing.
amazing. Wow. But you are at school.
Yes.
You've been studying law.
Yeah.
And these two have coexisted pretty well.
Yeah, because there's a time for everything. Even in the Bible, it tells you there's a time for everything. There's time for fun and there's a time to be serious. So spinning is my fun, and studying is just to be serious.
So you want to be in the court representing people?
Well, if my driving career doesn't take off the way I want it to be, studying law is my backup plan. Being
So
a
where
lawyer.
can spinning take you? Where can it take you? So is it always about exhibitions for you to show your different stunts?
Well, for me, spinning has taken me a really long way. I just recently came back from New York, showcasing my talent over there. And then I also met Charlize Theron, the award-winning actress. So she came all the way from America to watch my spinning. So spinning can take you places. I mean, you just have to believe in yourself and you have to showcase your talent and just go for it, because the sky is not the limit. You just have to believe in yourself and push.
Yeah, so you're finding little girls coming up to you and saying, I want to be like you.
All the time, and it's so amazing. I find it so adorable because, like, it's just, I wish there was somebody like that when I was growing up.
Yes.
A role model and, you know, somebody to push and tell me that you can do it, you just have to believe in yourself. So it's amazing when the little girls come up to me and want to take pictures and sit on my lap. It's so cute.
But I'm sure for a lot of people, there's also that cognitive dissonance that happens. It's like they're looking at you, you're petite, you're soft-spoken, and then they get to see what you do in the car. It's like, wait, hold on. These two images don't go together.
Actually, I have that problem because my sister and I look very similar, but she's built a bit bigger than I am. She's a bit taller. So people always think she's Stacey because she's taller and, you know, she looks like she's mean.
But you do look mean when you're doing your thing. You're like, you can't touch me.
Mean.
Straight face, like, you definitely come across like, no, can't touch this, can't.
Yeah, that's just me being in my own bubble, doing what I love, and there's nobody telling me what to do.
What a rush. What a rush. Well, Stacey, it's been fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In that pink 325 IS. Oh, kusheshe. Anyway. Well, when we return, the ladies and I will wrap up this evening as we chat speed and industry politics. Stay with us. Thank you. Welcome back to Real Talk, and I'm about to wrap up my conversation with these adrenaline-loving ladies. And back on the couch, I've got Claire, Fabienne, and Vuyi. Ladies, now let's get real. Do you drive in your heels, by the way? Vuyi? Of course. Fabienne?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. No, take them off. It's sacrilege. Why do you drive in your heels?
Because I can.
She's representing.
I guess, right? She's got to live the title driving in heels. So, Claire, you touched on this a little bit earlier on about the cost. How expensive is the sport?
I think different levels have different levels of expense.
Yeah.
There are affordable places to get started, for example, in Gymkhana, where you can use your own road car, and it's actually quite safe, and you know, a lot of it's done on a skid pan, so you don't use up tires and so on. So yeah, I think it really depends. But of course, if you want to get really competitive and move up the ladder to the top, travel costs, and there are a lot of other factors that come into play.
Is there a lot of sponsorship?
Not in this economy at the moment, and I think that's not really a differentiation even between the guys and the female drivers and the male drivers. I think sponsorship for sport in general is quite a challenge.
Yes.
So yeah, there are not many sponsors around at the moment, unfortunately. So it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, you've got to love it. You've got to love it. And in karting?
It's similar, you know. I think the younger kids to start off, and that it's not too expensive, and you can start secondhand. I normally tell all our guys when they start, just get secondhand, because your kid is going to end up in a small little ding dong here and there, and you don't want to do that on a new cart. And then you can build yourself up as you go through the classes. And I normally tell the parents, you know, while the kids are young like that, they need to learn what karting is about, and like the character building that we like to do in all the kids. And it sort of, we call it building little entrepreneurs, because when you're racing on your own, there's nobody to tell you what to do. We can just tell you from the outside, you need to drive here, you need to do that, you need to do so on. But once you're going, you need to now make the decision on your own.
No, I can see the value now, the lessons, the life lessons that
so
come
that's
out
really
of it.
important, whether you race 1 year or 10 years, that you can always take that with you. And then, of course, we also teach them awareness, because when they then get older and drive on the road, they get more aware of what's happening around them, and that obviously makes it safer on the road driving.
So does that mean you're all defensive drivers, that you're pretty responsible on the road?
Yeah.
So you love cars. What are the 3 things you look for in a car? Yeah.
Performance. Performance is going to be a big factor. Convenience in terms of technology. Comfort. Can I give you one more?
Yeah.
Fuel efficiency, huge.
Yeah,
huge.
especially in this economy.
Yeah.
And for you, Fabienne?
Yeah, well,
Pretty
okay,
much.
yeah, karting a bit different. The
But
smaller,
just generally, because you've got to love driving in cars.
The smaller carts, they go on one tank, I think, for the whole afternoon, you know, so that's quite efficient. But then, like the one I drive, you have to top it up every session, otherwise you're not going to go far. But we do feel it, because we base it on like how many drums we always buy, and then we can see how you always pay more and more and more. And then you know, with the clients and that, you're obviously like, now you've got to charge them more as well for this.
Yes.
It is what it is.
Sure, but I forgot to ask you earlier, how much does a cart cost, like ballpark?
So the youngsters, like the 5-year-olds, a brand new cart is about in the region of 30,000, and then it goes through the ranks as the older they get, and then the one that I race can be about 130,000 rand.
That's like car, a house.
Yeah.
I'm doing the sums now. So I want to talk about the politics as well, because there have to have been certain barriers for all of you in doing this. Yes, now you're at a level where you've gained trust, you've gained credibility, you are somewhat authorities in what you do, but this couldn't have come easy, couldn't have. How's it been for you?
We certainly have our challenges. I think all of us, I'm sure Fabienne agrees.
Yeah.
And it would be good to see a little bit more support perhaps from some of the organizations to help to pull through more of the girls who say start off in carts and encourage them to carry on. But certainly we have a handful of really competitive female drivers here, and I think the main thing is that as you prove yourself, which you have to do over and over again, it's not like you just prove yourself once, I think it's a continuous process, then you do gain respect, and you know, eventually you become another competitor under a helmet rather than a female driver or whatever, and I think that's what we all want.
Yes,
you know,
but don't you get tired always being one of the boys?
I think it just goes with the territory, you know, because whether you're a female perhaps in the automotive industry or another so-called male-dominated industry, it's all the same really, you know. I think motorsport is very little difference from working in such an industry.
Yes.
You know, we really have the same issues and the same challenges.
Yeah, yeah. Vuyi?
Slightly different. I mean, I agree with what Claire has said. For me, as a black female, that was something that you couldn't ignore. As recently as 10 years ago when I started out, that was a barrier, the fact that, you know, you're in a white male-dominated field. So for me, it's not just about being male. It was also like, you know, very heavily white-dominated.
Look at dealerships. You go, and I don't think I've ever been helped by a female, by a woman in buying a car. It's always men.
Yeah, no, it is a lot of men, you know, in there. So for me, that was probably one of my biggest stumbling blocks. I remember, and I tell the story quite often, not because it comes from a place of hurt, but because I've actually gotten over it. During this past, like 8 years, a young chap came to me in the industry, and he said to me, listen, my sister, listen, let me just, you know, give you some advice. Nobody's going to take you seriously. Nobody's going to take your opinion seriously as a black female in this industry.
Wow.
That was in the past 8 years. And I realized that...
telling you to quit? Like, stop this now.
Perhaps, I don't know. That's not how I heard it. I heard him saying, wow, you're fantastic. Actually, I hear what I want to hear. I thought, you know what, that's your reality.
Yes.
You know? I remember going into organizations where I had to, as Claire says, continuously prove myself, continuously tell them what I knew, you know, every time I went in there until they actually...
No, I think that's an insightful note to end it off on, because anybody who wants to enter the space must be aware that the hard work is there and you'll have to overcome a lot of barriers. Thank you so much to all of you. A big thank you for being here. So I hope that you've been informed, but mainly inspired by the guests that I've had today, as we've been looking at women who are into cars and the journeys that they've had to travel to get to where they are. So thank you very much to all my guests for this evening, and you can tell us what you thought of the conversation on our social media platforms. It's at Real Talk on 3. So let's do it again on Monday, that's Monday evening, on SABC 3 at 6 p.m. And it's definitely a date. I'm Azania Mosaka. Have yourselves a splendid weekend. Good night.
Real Talk is proudly sponsored by Y-Way P20 Pro and MTN.
Each week for 10 weeks, we're giving away the latest Y-Way